Good afternoon. My name's Deborah Potts-Novgorodoff. I'm a member of All Peoples here and a member of many of the environmental organizations in Louisville and across Kentucky that have joined together in this effort to oppose the pipeline through Bernheim. LG&E's pipeline through Bernheim, let me be clear. I really appreciate everybody who's shown up here in our All People Sanctuary, as well as on Zoom and Facebook. As you know, since you're here, LG&E is taking Bernheim to court on January 10th to condemn land to run their pipeline. This is egregious in so many ways, both locally, given its impact on Bernheim land and the surrounding farms that are in that area, as well as on habitat of a number of endangered species, but also on a global level with the impact of continued fossil fuel use on the climate. Our wonderful speakers today will address these issues at both levels. We're going to begin today. I'll introduce the speakers one by one as they come up, but we're beginning today with Cantor Lip from Congregation Adath Jeshurun, maybe more familiarly known in Louisville as AJ, and Rabbi Rapport from the Temple. We've asked them to join us in honor of Isaac Bernheim, founder of Bernheim Arboretum and Research Forest, and as a celebration of the continued support of the Jewish community in Louisville. Cantor Lip.
In the book of Genesis, we're commanded to work the land and to protect the land. Le'ovda u'leshomra, by Chava Morel, stand up. We stand on the earth, so we better stand for her together. We stand on the earth, so we better stand for her together. Stand up for our mother, stand up for each other, stand up for our mother, stand up for each other. Oh, oh, oh,
Story of the Baal Shem Tov, a legend of our people from a faraway land nearly 3 centuries ago. It's a lesson on the biblical tale of the Garden of Eden, that first forest from which all of our lives began. The first human being was called in Hebrew Adam, and the earth from which we were drawn was called Adamah. And the difference between the two, the single letter He, is a symbol of God's name. From this all, the Baal Shem Tov taught, so it is that there's a spirit which connects us with the earth. We too are connected as if by a single soul. But just as a man or a woman can at times lose sight of the soul that binds them as one, so too we can forget our oneness with the earth. The remedy for both can be found in the letters of God's name. For when we recognize the presence of God that dwells within us, we can recognize as well the oneness that makes us all one together. The lesson for us here today is that Adam, the first human being, was drawn by God with God's own hands from Adamah, from the earth herself. And God charged us to guard and protect her. We are of this earth, not apart from it. We share a single soul, and whatever we do to the planet, we do to ourselves. I'm a rabbi of Isaac Bernheim's congregation, a heritage which the temple has remembered across the many years and in many ways. And just as there's a story of our first Garden of Eden, there's a story of Bernheim Arboretum and Research Forest, which is our story, our lives, there among those trees, which lives on in our ability to protect that legacy as a path towards a future which together we might build. Bernheim Forest is just not any stand of wood which, by the determination of some public utility, can simply be condemned to make way for the inevitable progress which we are told none of us can forestall. Bernheim Forest is a legacy of nearly a century of dedicated work to redeem the earth and renew it as a garden for all the people of the Commonwealth to share. The vision for a forest dedicated to the public use was something which I.W. Bernheim had dreamed of for most of his life, hearkening back perhaps to the beauty of the German black forests of his youth. In his gift of the land and the establishment of the foundation which would reclaim it, he said, "Dreams were mine in the far-off day in Germany when I was a boy and I walked to school. They were with me when I struggled upward in life, when I emigrated to America, when I tramped the country roads of Pennsylvania, selling Yankee notions from farm to farm. My dreams remained with me as my business grew and expanded through the years. They ripened into maturity at my country home in Kentucky, and in never to be forgotten walks and talks with my wife. Many of you assembled here have experienced the reality of those dreams on the rough, winding roads of Bernheim Forest, in its beautiful gardens, on visits to the clean-lined architecture of the Visitors Center and Museum which graces the forest grounds. But the true wonder of the place is barely detectable in its present form. The land upon which Bernheim Forest now lies was purchased by its benefactor in 1928 for just $1 an acre, the original 14,000 acres in all. Considering the value of the property in today's terms, the land was a bargain, but even in the context of its time, the original purchase of the land was quite literally dirt cheap. It was dirt cheap because, for the most part, dirt was about all that was there. Most of the land had been stripped for mining iron ore. Much of the rest was from depleted farmland from long past its prime. It was the gift of the Bernheim Foundation which would painstakingly reclaim the land and create there the natural wonder which we now can experience, which is in so many ways the legacy of Isaac Bernheim's life. That forest stands where once there was a wasteland. It's a living memorial to his many efforts to repair the world and the ability of one person to live beyond our dreams. At Bernheim's grave, he left a bronze statue, "Let There Be Light," which harkens back to the biblical garden of our beginnings. It is set now in a quiet grove alongside the grave of his beloved wife in the verdant forest here in Kentucky, which now bears his name. There's no great epitaph engraved upon a stone, just a well-trimmed corner of the vast forest and arboretum which literally lives on in his name. "The grave has no voice," said Isaac Bernheim, as his final words in the document which established that foundation. The grave has no voice. In his 96 years upon this earth, Isaac W. Bernheim was often wrong, always earnest, but never did he so miscalculate the arc of history as he did when he wrote those words. For even now, long after his death, his voice is heard even still. It is our voice now, and it is our responsibility to protect the legacy of these dreams which were meant for all of us to share. Breathe in, breathe out. That's the legacy which Isaac Bernheim leaves behind, placed within our care. A now 18,000-acre forest, which was once only a wasteland, pouring forth day after day, year after year, quite literally, the air we breathe. The great-grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, was a great storyteller too. He had a particular kinship with nature, and he too was known to take long walks in the woods. He wrote a prayer, which Cantor Lipp will share with us, long ago words to a modern-day melody by Debbie Friedman. It's called "You Are the One," and in it you'll hear Rabbi Nachman's words. "May all the foliage and fields, all the grasses and trees and plants, awaken at my coming and send their life into my words of prayer, so that my speech, my thought, my prayers will be made whole through the spirit of all growing things."
This I pray, that I may have the strength to be alone, to see the world, to stand among the trees and all the living things, that I may stand alone and offer prayers and talk to you. You are the one for whom I do belong. And I'll sing my soul, I'll sing my soul to you, and give you all that's in my heart. May all the foliage of the field, all grasses, trees, and plants, awaken at my coming. This I pray, and send their life into my words of prayer, so that my speech, my thoughts, my prayers will be made whole, and through the spirit of all growing things. And we know that everything is one, because we know that everything is you. You are the one, for this I pray. I ask you, God, to hear my words that pour out from my heart. I stand before you, I like water lift my hands to you in prayer. And grant me strength, and grant me strength to stand alone. You are the one to whom I do belong. And I'll sing my soul, I'll sing my soul to you, and give you all that's in my heart. You are the one, for this I pray, and I'll sing my soul to you.
Thank you so much, Cantor Lip and Rabbi Rapport. We are really honored today to have both Mark Worms, who's the Executive Director of Bernheim, and Andrew Berry, the Director of Conservation at Bernheim, here to speak with us and tell us what's going on. Dr. Worms?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure and honor to be here with so many friendly faces. But how do you follow and act like that? I'm Mark Worms, as it was stated, and I wish we weren't here today. Because if we weren't here today, it would mean that we were on a sustainable path forward, that the world was responding as it should to the climate crisis, that the world was using common sense about energy and community development and sustainability. But that's not where we are. So let's spend a moment and talk about Bernheim and the crises that it faces. As you've heard, Bernheim was founded 93 years ago by Isaac Wolf Bernheim. And it was his dream that Bernheim as a place, and I think as an idea, would be available to all people forever, regardless of race, creed, or economic status. We follow that today. And I'm happy to say that we have over 350,000 and more visitors each year from diverse backgrounds from throughout the state of Kentucky and the surrounding states, but also throughout the United States and the world. And so Bernheim speaks for all of Kentucky, for all of nature. And we have to remember that this issue is bigger than Bernheim. It sounds like Bernheim is a big place, 16,140 acres, which, by the way, is 25.5 square miles. To put that in perspective, that's the island of Manhattan in New York. But instead of millions of people, we have millions of trees. We're the birthplace of 13 streams. So we're providing clean air, clean water, wildlife, beauty, tranquility for these communities around us, but for the globe as well. Who here cares about clean air and clean water? Yeah, right. That's unanimous for those of you who can't see those hands raised. But 3.5 years ago, Bernheim faced 3 threats. One was from a proposed highway bypass. Around Louisville, we have the Watterson, the Gene Snyder, and a third one was being proposed. And that one may have even gone right through the front gate of Bernheim, or right in front of the front gate of Bernheim. Well, with the help of people like you and amazing organizations throughout the region, we beat that proposal. That highway will not occur. And by the way, in the process, we saved the people of Kentucky $800 million. Instead of doing a new bypass, they're going to use half that money to improve local roads. Not a bad trade-off, is it? The second was a proposed 12-mile pipeline proposed by LG&E to pump hydrocarbons for the next 70 years. That 12-mile pipeline would go through part of Bernheim and many of our neighbors' lands. And that part of Bernheim is called the Cedar Grove Wildlife Corridor. And that's an important aspect because Bernheim, as big as it seems, is ecologically small. We need to stay connected to other natural lands, to other waterways, and that's what the Wildlife Corridor was going to do, run up north towards the Salt River. And that Salt River is a highway, in a good sense, for wildlife. So that's why that is important. We don't want that corridor further impacted by this pipeline. We also don't want to be pumping hydrocarbons for the next 70 years when we should be moving to a carbon-free economy and environment and in the next 20. And the third threat that Bernheim faced 3.5 years ago is still with us as well, and that is the existential threat of climate change. But we're doing our share. We're trying to be best stewards of natural lands, and natural lands provide natural resilience to climate change. We're also trying to be role models, practice what we preach. So we have put together a Bernheim Climate Crisis Action Plan where our buildings, our operations, our very visitor services will continue to be greener and greener and greener in rapid order over the next few years. We're excited about the challenge of being carbon-free, and we're excited about the challenge of helping Kentucky turn around and be a leader in carbon-free economy, ecology, and society. Wouldn't that be a nice dream to realize? Yeah. This pipeline threatens many things. And you'll hear about some of this in a moment from Andrew Barry. But it threatens landowners' rights. We have a private for-profit corporation taking land to make more money. It threatens states' land rights. They are literally suing the state of Kentucky to break conservation easements and deed restrictions. It threatens some endangered species and some rare species and some species that are so unknown that we don't even know if they're rare and endangered. There are 3 bats, gray, northern long-eared, and Indiana bats that use this area, along with about 8 or 9 others. But just the other day, the northern long-eared, unfortunately, was listed in a transition from rare to endangered. That's the wrong direction, everybody. We need to be going back. We need to be restoring these wildlife populations. Why do we care about bats? Well, one, I think they have a moral right to exist. They have the right to be here. Two is that they're really important in the ecology, in food networks. They're really important as insect eaters. They're very important as forest fertilizers, cave fertilizers. They're really great creatures. And some of them have faces only a mother could love. But maybe that's why we should love them, right? We also have some snails on that land. Some so rare that we don't even know if they're rare and endangered. And why should we care about snails? Did you know Bernheim has 82 species of snails? What? Most people don't even know there are that many snails out there. But why are they important? It's because they recycle calcium. They're licking the limestone rocks, and then that goes into their shells, and when their shells get eaten, that's biologically available. You know, it's all tied together. We're all in this. We're part of that same food web. We're part of that same ecology. And of course, the pipeline threatens another thing, and that is to aggravate the climate crisis. As I stated before, they want to pump hydrocarbons for the next 70 years. So gang, it is up to you. We're doing our part. On January 10th, we're back in court on this Bullitt County Circuit Court and the right to take our land. And you know, unfortunately, a lot of the laws and rules and practice are written against organizations and individuals. So it's been an uphill battle. But you know what? I'm proud to be in that battle with you all, because you really are the voices that make the difference. And so we'll see what happens in January. But you know, even if that doesn't go our way, we still have opportunities because of Clean Water Act activities out there and a few other things. So please, this does not end with the pipeline. The pipeline is a symptom. This is about the future of sustainable Kentucky, the future of a planet that we want to live in and leave our children. We're going to, if you can we hold a question until we get Andrew Berry up here, our Director of Conservation? He's going to run through a couple of things to bring this to life for you, and then we'll take a few questions. Thank you very much.
Can I take this out? All right, thank you all. It's great to be up here. So I was going to talk with a slideshow behind me because I heard some of y'all wanted to see some pictures. I know this is a beautiful room and a beautiful chapel, but you know, Bernheim is nature's chapel as well. So I was going to show some pictures, and then yeah, afterwards, if you all have questions, we're glad to answer anything we can about the pipeline, the lawsuit, or you know, nature in general. So thank you all for being here. You know, it was summer of 2019 that Mark and I and some of the Bernheim team were here in the same room speaking to people about the same issue. So we've been in this almost 4 years now, and as Mark said, it's been an uphill battle. But you know, remember this: LG&E has now been locked in this battle as well to try to get this proposed natural gas pipeline. Longer they've been messing with Bernheim. They've been messing with private landowners. So now I'm starting to think that LG&E is the one facing the uphill battle. As Mark said, we've got a condemnation lawsuit coming up on January the 10th. Whether we win or lose, and I'll say the cards are stacked against us on this one, but whether we win or lose, LG&E has got a long way to go before they get that pipe in the ground. They've got challenges from the Center for Biological Diversity and the Kentucky Resources Council about the biological opinion, which involves federally endangered bats and other creatures on that property. They've got challenges from the Section 404 and 401 water quality certification and stream permits. There's still decisions to be made with the Army Corps. And not to mention that there is a lot of people asking about the cost of this pipeline. You know, it was originally slated at $25 million. Now it's gone up over $80 million. And I think that is just a drop in the bucket of what they will end up spending on this. Why is LG&E fighting so hard to get this pipeline? You all have probably heard in the news recently that it's not just this pipeline that LG&E is trying to push through. It's a whole bunch of other projects, right? It's coal-fired power plants that they want to keep running all the way past 2070, right? Shame on them. Yeah, shame on them. It is hidden in documents that they just submitted to PSC. It's natural gas powered plants that they want to build. They try to keep that a secret, right? And then this pipeline, which as Mark stated, it's going to push hydrocarbons for at least the next 70 years, and probably longer. That is their plan, to just continue to be dependent upon fossil fuels, to not make the changes that they need to make, to continue down the wrong path for our community. We know from climate change awareness, from land use change awareness, from biodiversity awareness, we know that we can't wait another 50 or 70 years to make the changes. LG&E has got the resources. They've got the engineers. They know the right direction. They can do the right thing, and they can start right now with this pipeline as the key issue to starting to do the right thing. So we're all going to stay on this. I mean, seeing all these people in this room, it's so invigorating, We couldn't fight this pipeline if it wasn't for people like Mark being willing to fight this at the head of Bernheim, if it wasn't for our Board of Trustees, who has stood beside us and given us the go to continue fighting this and raise money around it. We couldn't fight if it wasn't for supporters like you all, who have been providing resources for our legal defense, providing voices when we're not around on this issue, and just fighting the good fight. So thank you all. I'm going to run through some slides. I haven't changed the slide yet, so why don't we see what we got on here? I think I got about 17. So this is a picture of the land that we're all here trying to fight today, or trying to protect today, fight to protect. And you can see it's the Cedar Grove Wildlife Corridor. Bernheim worked for at least past 15 years to make this project possible. Even at 16,000 acres, Bernheim can't exist as an island. And we've got growth and land use change and climate change all around us. So to protect key parcels of land that move out for wildlife towards other protected areas and just connect Bernheim with other areas and allow us to be resilient into the future, that's what we work to do. And Cedar Grove Wildlife Corridor, as you can see, there's a swath right through the middle, which is already a big scar. That's an East Kentucky power line. And they want to put that pipeline right there adjacent to it. And, it's a lot different than a power line. It actually would go through the ground. It would damage the forest, which could never come back on the site. It would impact the rock outcrops, the streams, the vegetation, and it's just something that we can't allow to happen on this piece of land. And you all are all aware of this. You see the reports that are coming out about climate change, about water, the Sustainability Louisville Plan, the Living Planet report that just came out recently, talking about how 70% of wildlife populations globally have declined in the last 50 years. These kinds of reports need to be heeded. We've got to pay attention to these types of things. We've got to try to live up to this. LG&E clearly is not getting the message. So we got to all elevate our voices to let them know that these types of studies and reports are real and that we need to be doing more. So that's just another look at the wildlife corridor. Let's move on to the next one real quick. Nature-based education. So there's a couple of key reasons why Bernheim is fighting this, and I want to run down through them. Number one, protecting landowner rights. Private property has always been an important thing here in Kentucky and throughout the United States. This issue is no different. The idea that an energy company like LG&E can use false narratives to gain a certificate of public necessity and convenience, to run this pipeline across private land, and to condemn private landowners. I don't think that's right. And so we are fighting for private property rights. We're fighting for clean water. We're fighting for conservation easements and deed restrictions that say that if a place like Bernheim buys land for conservation with federal and state funding, that we should be able to protect that land in perpetuity and not have an energy company come through a couple years later and bust those up. But we're also fighting to ensure opportunities for future generations in nature. Bernheim puts about 10,000 school kids through our gates every year for sanctioned nature-based programming. We do over 300,000 that come for informal experiences in nature. And keeping these kinds of opportunities and these types of places around for the future generations of children and everybody else to enjoy, that's really important. It's actually priceless. You can't put a dollar amount on the clean air, the clean water, the forests, and everything else that we provide at Bernheim. We've got to fight, and we've got to give voice for every tree out there, every rock, every stream. See if we can run through this. There we go. So here's a map of the pipeline route. It's kind of hard for some of you all to see, but if you see the red line, that's where the pipeline is proposed to run by LG&E. You can see the green area, which is Bernheim, and how it cuts right through that northern Cedar Grove Wildlife Corridor. You can see in the yellow and the pink the properties just north of that, which are the Pine Creek Barrens and the Apple Valley Glades. Those are other protected areas owned by other nonprofits and state agencies. So you can see why that wildlife corridor was so important and why we were so focused on putting this green space between our arboretum and these other protected areas up to the north. It's going to allow wildlife to thrive and exist over the generations to come. But you could see also off on the northwestern side of this, and you can see those white dots that have popped up. When you come down to Bernheim, those are those industrial warehouses that you see. And that's pretty much what this proposed pipeline is feeding. It's feeding a lot of growth around Bernheim, a lot of growth that's threatening Bernheim's sanctity and existence over the long run. So, you know, we know that LG&E needs to get gas to customers, and we know there are customers in the area who want it. Bernheim does not want to stand in the way of growth. We just want to see conservation keep pace with the growth around us. We want to see nature be able to coexist with the growth of our communities and do so in a responsible manner. Let's go one more. I mentioned these a minute ago. This is just a beautiful view of that area with the Cedar Grove Wildlife Corridor. You can see the shadows there on the knobs, but you can also see that white spot in the upper right-hand corner. And that white area that you see there in the land is where the warehouses are pushing down and getting closer to Bernheim. And, you know, it's a stark vision there. There's not a lot of places where you can see that much forest contiguous in central Kentucky. Bernheim's one of the few places that it still exists like that here in central Kentucky. But also we're in the most rapidly developing area in the state. So making a stand and doing what's right to keep as much nature as we can, I mean, that seems obvious, right? Next. The bats, we mentioned the bats, the federally endangered species like the northern long-eared bat, the Indiana bat, the gray bat, and numerous other species. We've got 13 species that roam this property. And the bats are actually what allowed us to get the funding to purchase it. Because we've documented them through research projects, we've actually captured the bats, we've tracked them across the Cedar Grove Wildlife Corridor, we found the trees that they put their maternity roosts in. We know that they're there, and so does the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. That's one of the reasons why there's a holdup right now with the biological opinion, because the bats aren't getting fully vetted and getting the respect that they deserve. And so we'll see what comes from that. And the snails. So, you know, 4 years ago, somebody told me, who I respect a lot, said a snail will never stop a pipeline. But that didn't stop us from trying, right? And, you know, we're still talking about them. This hidden spring snail, you know, I take people down there, like the Kentucky Student Environmental Coalition who went down there with us recently. And, you know, I take them to the rock where some of these snails are at. And you hit to the next one, the next slide too. the bluff vertigo. So the hidden spring snail is in the spring there in the creek, but the bluff vertigo was actually on this giant rock outcrop right there above the creek. And I take them there and I show it to them, and they're looking at it. I don't really think they can see it, maybe. Some people don't even believe that it really exists, you know. But if you don't believe it exists, look it up on NatureServe. You know, these are critically endangered snail species. You can Google it. NatureServe keeps all the biological data for all the species in the United States, and you'll see that this bluff vertigo is only known from less than 30 locations. It doesn't mean it gets a lot of cred with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and other groups. Hidden spring snail is only known from less than 5 locations in the United States. Again, doesn't get a lot of respect because it's hard to see them. But nevertheless, they've been there. They've been there for probably millions of years, and we're going to keep fighting to make sure they're there for a lot longer. Next. Golden eagles, you know, golden eagles have kind of become our mascot at Bernheim. They're a symbol of large wild places. Anywhere you go across the world, they're a symbol of, you know, symbol of conservation. And so what we've learned about the eagles at Bernheim is they are coming here because of our large undisturbed forest, where you can still get away from roads and agriculture and humans. And we've been tracking these eagles for since 2015, so I guess coming up close to 10 years now. And every year they come back because Bernheim is a safe place for them. They find refuge there. Next. And so I guess my point is that, you know, we're all here because we care about the issue, and we're all here because we're willing to do something about it, right? And everybody keeps saying, we want to do something. How can we get more involved? What can we do to help Bernheim? I would say there's a couple of things. Just like with the snails, with the eagles, we can lend our voice to things that have no voice. You know, speak for the trees, speak for the rocks, speak for the snails, let out the eagle yell, whatever it takes to let people know you all care. Another thing, Bernheim plans on being in this fight for a lot longer. Our legal defense has been exceptional. We've got Randy Strobo with Strobo Barkley representing us. We've also got Kentucky Resources Council with Tom Fitzgerald and Ashley Wilms. But, you know, it takes a lot of money to fight these things. And so we need your all support to help keep up this legal defense. So you could either donate to our Land Protection Fund. If you wanted, you could even donate to a place like Kentucky Resources Council. They do so much good work beyond Bernheim. And lastly, you know, what else can you do? Stay informed, keep attending events like this, and keep up the pressure on LG&E, because really this is, as Mark said, a symptom of a much bigger issue. And this pipeline is a good chance for LG&E to do what's right and to really start to turn the tide on dependence on fossil fuels and dependence on more pipelines, and really start to make a change that's going to do right for our community. Last slide. I think we're almost through. Click through a couple more, and we'll put it on the. This is a view right here of some of that encroachment upon Bernheim. You can see the knobs in the background with the fog and the morning dew on it, and that's all Bernheim in the background. But in the front, you see all those 50-acre industrial warehouses. They don't have fog hanging over them. You know, they have already altered the climate around where they're at to where it's a much different place. And Bernheim's going to do everything we can to resist the changes and the impacts that come from development like that around us, while still fully embracing our community, being there for the people that work in these businesses, supporting growth in Bullitt County, but letting them know that we've got a right to exist too. So thank you all for everything you do. I think at this point, we want to take some questions. So if you can hit it to the final slide, maybe. Mark, you want to come up there? Or do we have another speaker? Okay, all right. Well, let's let them speak, and then we can take questions at the end. Is that good? Okay. Thank you all so much.
All right. Next on our list here is the Reverend Elisa Owen. She's Executive Director of KIPL, Kentucky Interfaith Power and Light. It's Kentucky's chapter in a national network dedicated to making the connection between spirituality and environmental sustainability. And from that strong foundation, enabling people of faith and conscience to witness in their communities the pressing need to mitigate the worst effects of climate change. KIPL does that by helping religious groups reduce the carbon footprint in their local religious settings, and they advocate in local, state, and at the local, state, and national level for policies that will do the same. KIPL's director is an ordained Presbyterian pastor with significant church leadership experience, who also brings to her work a background in electric sector regulation. Reverend Owen. I think I got it. There we go.
Good afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. One of the most exciting things that has happened to KIPL in the last year is that we have lived into a partnership with the Louisville Climate Action Network, whose executive director is sitting right there. She's Sarah Lynn Cunningham. And what we did this summer, working together with LCAN's expertise, is that we took 44 tons of carbon out of the air. Now, and we did that working with 8 religiously based nonprofits in this city who extend services to people who desperately need them. So it's kind of like win, 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 right? Because we are saving these people who serve our community money, we're taking carbon out of the air, and we are allowing those people to have more money for their missions. What's not to like? Now, here's the problem, and it's some of the things that Mark and Andrew were mentioning. It is much easier to prevent new carbon from going into the air than it is to try to reduce the carbon footprint of people that we all know need to use energy. And so that's why, on the other side, KIPL does a whole lot of advocacy work. And that's why when people in the LG&E Shareholders Resolution Group, which that tries to go to shareholder meetings with trying to remind LG&E that we really are in a climate emergency and we really need their partnership. That's why when that group started talking about, oh no, they're taking Bernheim to court again, KIPL said, of course we need to be involved, and that's why I get to speak to you. Now, I don't have a whole lot more to say, but I'm here to try to make the connection for you, which others have tried to do, between the global and the local, okay? And I want to do that by trying to just highlight 3 things from an October of 2021 report from the International Energy Agency. Now, the International Energy Agency is located in Paris, France, and Paris, France is a long way from Bernheim Forest, Kentucky. But what they tried to do in that report is they tried to lay out what they called a pathway to 2050, right? Which is when we have to get to net zero, which net zero really isn't even enough, but let's just play for a moment and say that it is. We're trying to get to net zero by 2050 so that we can meet the 1.5 degrees warming, not go over that. And we do that by putting some, this is the way my father used to help me study for tests, okay? He would take the floor And he would lay out pieces of paper, right, on the floor. And he would say, this is how we're going to connect the dots between this and this, historically speaking, because my father's an historian, right? And so basically what the 2050 report does is it tries to get us, you got to have steps across the creek, my father would say, right? Elisa, you got to have steps across the creek to be able to make these connections. So that's what this report is trying to do, is to make steps across the creek. So let me just talk to you about 3 of the things they highlighted and then say, Google that report because it's really interesting, believe it or not. Even if you're not a geek like me, you might be interested. Here are a couple of the things that it says. It says, first of all, that the future is electric, right? So the future is not fossil fuel based because you can make and transport electricity much easier than you can transport hydrocarbons. It's much safer, right? And transmission lines don't leak, right? Methane, for example, when you transport natural gas. Yes? Do you need something? Sorry, my daughter was going like this, and I thought Anyway, so they don't leak. So you're leaving. You're leaving. Your father is here. I'm sorry. Sorry, folks. So they don't leak. So the future is electric. So that was the first thing that I wanted to highlight for you, right? Because that makes the connection between Paris, France, and LG&E's new pipeline, right? We do not need, this is the second thing from this report that I wanted to highlight for you. This report says that after 2021, and we're after 2021, no new fossil fuel infrastructure, period. Their pathway, right? Why? Because their pathway to 2050, which are these steps across the creek, right? Their pathway does not have any room for new projects, not even if there's a war in Russia. I mean, a war in Ukraine that Russia is perpetuating, right? We've got to stop with the new fossil fuel infrastructure because you got to pay down those projects, right? And then all of a sudden, we're at 2050 really quick, right? So no, we cannot let LG&E put in any new fossil fuel infrastructure. That's the local response to the global energy report from the International Energy Agency, right? So future is electric, no pipeline, right? What does that mean logically? No pipeline. We've got to have steps across the creek, no new fossil fuel infrastructure. What does that mean? No pipeline, right? So I'm going to let you look more at the report, but what you will find as you read through that is that, here's the other thing. The last thing that I will say is that because the future is electric, right? The last thing that I wanted to highlight, which just left my mind, never mind. Let's just finish there. You all go and look at it, and I hope that you will make your own connections between that report and this issue. This is a local issue, as Mark highlighted, of a global problem. I appreciate being here. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Reverend Owen. That was finally made some links that I needed to make, so I really appreciate it. Our next speaker is Professor Rob Kingsolver. He holds a doctorate in ecology from the University of Kansas. He's a past president of the Kentucky Academy of Science, author of an ecology textbook for college students, and was the founding dean of Bellarmine University's environmental science program. He recently retired after 40 years of teaching ecology and environmental courses in service to the next generation of scientists. Rob, thanks so much for being here today.
Well, thank you, Deborah. I appreciate that listing of my credentials, but really there's only one qualification that I'm standing on as I talk to you this afternoon, and that is I'm a grandfather. And so those of you who have families understand what I'm saying when I tell you that my love for those little ones gives me a stake in the future that extends beyond my own lifetime. And so it's out of concern for them that I read the reports from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and the National Climate Assessment that comes out every 4 years. Many of you know that these reports are written not by political appointees, but by career scientists. And these people are chosen by their peers as the most highly qualified, the most accomplished, the most respected voices representing the thousands of researchers around the world who spend their professional careers studying all the factors that influence the weather patterns that impact our daily lives. And I'm glad we have some children here today, since I'm speaking for them. And so one of those factors, as Reverend Owen just talked about, is the greenhouse gases, primarily carbon dioxide and methane, that are generated from the extraction, the transport, and the burning of fossil fuels. And so after decades of exhaustive research effort, probing every nook and cranny of our planet, including all levels of the atmosphere, all depths of the ocean, satellite data, sediment, ice cores, and everything, they have a tremendous body of evidence to work with. They have spent decades refining their analytical tools and testing their predictive models. And this is what the experts have to tell us. We have a decision to make right now. We can either cut our greenhouse gas emissions in half within 10 years, or our grandkids are going to live a much more difficult life than my generation has led. And that's a lot to do in a short time. Why 10 years? Because after 10 years, if we haven't made significant progress toward that zero emissions in 2050 that Reverend Owen was talking about, we will cross some points of no return, some tipping points. And from there, we can't get back to where we are now. As an example, you can look at our oceans. As we add more and more CO2 to the atmosphere, those gases are trapping heat, which warms the oceans beyond the thermal tolerance limits of marine species like corals that build coral reefs. We've already killed many coral reefs around the world. If we don't cut our greenhouse gas emissions in half within 10 years, we'll lose all of them and we'll never get them back. There are lots more examples, but I have 10 minutes to address you. So I'll let you look those up. So what kinds of consequences are our grandchildren looking at? You can read the reports. They're pretty sobering. But you can get a pretty good idea by watching the national weather reports and listening to the number of times that the meteorologists use words like record-shattering or unprecedented when they describe a coming era of permanent drought in the southwestern United States, which is killing agriculture and threatening the existence of large cities as their reservoirs dry up. You can hear them talk about unprecedented incidents and intensity of wildfires in our parched western forest. A warmer planet gives us more damaging tornadoes of the kind that devastated western Kentucky last year. It gives us record-setting rainfall, which forces creeks and rivers out of their historic floodplains, and which washed away several towns in eastern Kentucky just this year. And of course, hurricanes that lash our coasts are getting so strong now that we had to add another category for hurricane intensity because recent storms have gone off the top of the scale that we've always used. Obviously, we've always had natural disasters, but what we're experiencing is an increase in the frequency and intensity of these weather events, and it's costing us in lives, in property, and in peace of mind as people are driven out of their homes. 2 weeks ago, the Associated Press reported that 90% of the counties within the United States have been included in a weather-related disaster declaration zone within the last 10 years. That is not normal. And so this is a high price that we're paying, but it's pretty small potatoes compared to what our grandchildren will be facing. And here's the reason why. The greenhouse gases we put into the atmosphere have a long life. They stay up there working for a long time. Carbon dioxide stays in the atmosphere for 100 years. And every one of those 100 years, it's trapping more heat and adding to this problem. And so the problem is increasing, but it's not just that our grandchildren will see an increasing problem. If we keep adding more CO2 to the atmosphere, the rate of increase keeps going up in an exponential fashion. So with the status quo, they are looking at consequences an order of magnitude above the difficulties that we're facing now. We've created a dirty avalanche of climate-wrecking pollution that is gaining mass and momentum and destructive power, and it's directed right at our grandchildren. And that is not okay with me, and it shouldn't be okay with anyone. And so there is only one moral response to that information that's available to everyone, and that is we've got to cut greenhouse gases in half within 10 years. That's a lot to do in a short time. The only way we're going to get there is to evaluate every project at every level according to that overriding objective, whether it's a new hot water heater for a family home, or the design of a building for an office park, or an energy project by a public utility. We have to ask, is this project going to help us cut greenhouse gas emissions in half within 10 years? As far as this pipeline project goes, there are people here who know more about it than I do. But I'm pretty certain that cutting a permanent scar across the face of a cherished conservation area and knocking down acres of trees and pushing out an obsolete fossil fuel to a bigger customer base and heaping more negative consequences onto our grandkids is not helping. And so I'm not here to vilify LG&E. They are my public utility. What I'm asking is their leadership look at this project and others within the larger context. If they do that, they will realize they cannot afford to do this. LG&E needs that $80 million and all the personnel and the time that they've earmarked for this pipeline to upgrade our electrical grid in Louisville to better accommodate rooftop solar. They need to invest in energy storage capacity in the way the automobile industry is investing. And while they're at it, they could rewrite their rate structure to actually reward customers for saving energy. And so I'll just end with this appeal to the directors of my public utility. I want you to stand up, be a leader, check your moral compass, and do the right thing. Not for me, but for the grandkids.
Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, my grandkids are here today, so ditto, ditto. Our next speaker, and I haven't seen her. Kenyatta, are you here today? Kenyatta? There you are, awesome. Kenyatta Johnson is our next speaker, and she recently finished up with her role as the Bernheim Ambassador. Pardon me, a program to foster relationship between Bernheim individuals and organizations that are currently underrepresented at Bernheim. Through this program, Kenyatta got involved with the Kentucky Student Environmental Coalition. The short name of that is KSEC, and catalyzed KSEC's focus on the LG&E pipeline. And they are really doing amazing work on this. You'll see some of that out in the lobby as you leave today. She'll be speaking with us today about her own relationship with this issue and why it's important for young people to be part of it. Kenyatta, thank you for being here.
Thank you, thank you. And Kat from Kentucky Student Environmental Coalition, and thank you. And then Mark and Andrew, I'm working tirelessly towards this fight against the pipeline, working extra hours. Like Andrew, you seen his family was just up here, like not complaining, and I really appreciate that. Same for Kat, working endless hours, trying to connect young adults, trying to connect people to Bernheim, and it is noticed, and I really admire that from all of you guys. And I also want to give thanks to this space and everybody that's out here. Like, I really was not expecting this many people. Makes me a little nervous, I'm not gonna lie, but but I really love that. So, we heard from some other speakers already the mention of sustainability, and so I do just want to ask the crowd, how many of you wonder, like, what the future will look like for your children or even your children's children? How many of you started thinking about that when you were in middle school or high school? How many of you started thinking about it maybe in college or maybe after you had children? Cool. So I feel like as a young adult, that is a question that we think about as early as elementary and middle school. Not per se because we just want to, but we're just forced with all the climate crisis that's happening around us. And so when we think about these issues, we wonder, when we get older, when our children grow up or when our grandchildren grow older, what will become a luxury for just a necessity to live, like clean air, access to water, food, soil, all of those things that should already be included, all of those things that our predecessors had and then some. I don't think it's fair, and I speak for a lot of young adults in the room and just in the communities, for that to be something we should have to give up or something that we should only have to deal with and make solutions for. And I feel like as young adults, we're often asked or told, well, you are our future. What are you gonna do to solve the problem? As young adults, we look at you guys and say, well, what are you doing to solve the problem? We don't want our problems and your problems and to try to fix it. It's stressful, it's depressing. It's like doomsday every time you go outside, or doomsday every time you hear about all of these weird freaks of nature happening. And people wonder why this generation is like on anxiety medicine and all those things like that. But it's like, it's a lot to take in, especially from a small child, and then you feel like your voice is not being heard as a young adult, that you're being overlooked in terms of policies, especially environmental policies. And so with that, I just wanna add, just in conversations with other young adults and even high schoolers, because I consider them to not be quite there yet, but just all young people in general. Like, we don't want another pipeline. Like, that's just it. We don't want a pipeline today. We don't want a pipeline tomorrow. We didn't want the pipelines that our elders put out here either. We want to work on being, thank you. We want to work on being more sustainable for the future. And it's not like it can't be done, because there's several models out there where this has been done. And with LG&E specifically, they have renewable energy plants in other parts of the world. Even in Kentucky, it's been proven and we've seen that it's done. So why are they choosing Bullitt County? Why are they choosing now to build this pipeline and make it seem as if this is a good for everybody, when I personally don't think it is? And so in this fight against the pipeline, I just want to say that young people are doing the work to make sure that we have sustainability, to make sure that our voices are heard, but this isn't something that we can do alone. This is something, like, we need support. We need support intergenerationally. We need support socioeconomically. We need support from all different cultures, all different backgrounds. There's so much information and so much knowledge and different methods to help fight this that will make us all better in the end. And so we as young people make moves for our future, but as a collective, like, we can make a movement against this pipeline. We can make a movement against fossil fuels and non-renewable energy sources. And so, thank you. And so I'm gonna end very shortly. I just want to say, as young people, we are trying to reclaim agency, reclaim our voices, and advocate for the futures that we want to see. And right now, that voice is telling us we don't need a new pipeline. We don't need fossil fuels right now. And we really want to provide and help to create a future that is gonna be good for everybody. So we don't have to worry so much about, will our children get to see this rare snail at Bernheim? Will they be able to go outside and worry if the dirt is gonna poison them? Like, all of these small things, like, we want to work now with the help of everybody to kind of mitigate that. And so, also, if you haven't already, took a second to go to the KSEC whiteboard booth, just to share your thoughts on the pipeline, and take a picture, and then we'll share that with the world so people can see that Louisville, Bullitt County, Kentucky, Bernheim, all of these people, we are fighting against this pipeline right now, and we're building solidarity against this pipeline and just sharing it with other people. Put ourselves on the map, let people know that we don't want it here, we don't want it now, and we don't want it anywhere else either. Because if it happens here, who's to say it's not gonna happen in Tennessee or gonna happen in Louisiana? So we are setting the stage for that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kenyatta. All right, well, we have one more brief speaker, and that is our Reverend Bruce Beisner. But I think it might be good to take, if there are any questions for the Bernheim folk, we'll take a few questions now. And Brody, what mics do you want us to use for that? Oh, you've got it? Russ is, okay, a couple of you. So raise your hand if you've got a question. Ellen has one over here. And I see one here. And Mark and Andrew, I'm going to give you the floor here.
Thank you so much. Hi.
I just want to know if you need our community support on January 10th in court.
You know, it's always interesting question about does packing a courtroom make a difference? You know, I think community support is valuable whenever and wherever.
Hi, my name's Jeff. I want to thank our speakers and everybody for being here today. It's nice to, I didn't feel alone, but I feel less alone now. So one quick question. A number of people said that this is not any good for anybody, but I'm guessing that there must be some profit for somebody involved here, otherwise no one would do it. So I wonder if you would, we might know the names of some of the people who can financially profit from this destructive pipeline, possibly the churches that they belong to and some of the other companies that might be supporting LG&E in this destructive process.
I'm not sure I can give you specifics like that, but you know, this is a big development supporting project. And I mean big development, not necessary for the average household. It didn't start that way. This was about bourbon distilleries. It's about big box warehouse distribution centers. By the way, they're popping up like mushrooms down there, just everywhere. This is about LG&E making money for their parent company. Remember, this isn't a local energy company. This is a subsidiary of PPL, Pittsburgh Power and Light, which is a huge corporation. So, you know, it is big business as usual is what it is. And as we've been hearing today from all of these eloquent speakers and all of your hearts, we can't afford to continue with business as usual. We want good business, we want sustainable business, we want economic vitality for everybody, we want equity in that economy, but we're not going to get it by doing big business as usual.
So it sounds like people from Pittsburgh are trying to tell us what to do.
PPL's probably got stakeholders and shareholders across the world, for that matter.
But it sounds like specifically to Louisville, PPL, there are people from another state trying to control what's happening here. Is that correct?
That may be true, yes.
Well, you said that LG&E is a subsidiary of PPL.
Right.
So it follows that PPL would be telling us how to run our state, correct?
Yeah.
Where is the court? What court is it? I'm on the same page with Ellen here.
So the court is the Bullitt County Circuit Court. It's in Shepherdsville, Kentucky. It's easy to find from there.
If you signed up any of the information, we will be communicating with you all about what we're organizing in terms of for the courtroom and other kind of activities. So we will be definitely be communicating with you all.
And I'll just add also your question that you had about who does this impact or who can we let know about it. The group that organized this meeting this afternoon has got a website together, and they've got letters that you can send to the president of PPL, of the president of LG&E, Andy Bashir, and some of these other decision makers. So please go to their website, check that out. They've also got some information about the signs and the court case and some of these other things too. You know, we've been vilified, Bernheim and some of these other groups have been vilified around this issue by LG&E for a long time. They've gone so far as to you know, create a website to counter some of these talking points that we've got. We've been trolled for 4 years now, and that's ramping up again, you know, for trying to do the right thing. So we're not here to vilify people. We know that there are corporations and households and others that rely upon LG&E to get their energy. And so we're not vilifying them. But we want everybody to remember, Bernheim is being sued over this. And, you know, we want to hold LG&E accountable, but not point our fingers at others.
No. May I speak?
Yeah.
My name is John Elliott, and I have a somewhat different perspective on the subject. I taught astronomy for 25 years at the University of Kentucky, and I started teaching climate change in 1980, and I thought that the things that I had to teach were just absolute rubbish. But the fact is that in the beginning of our universe, there were two planets that had oceans and trees and rivers. And our planet Venus for many years was like the Earth, but it was just too close to the edge of the Goldilocks zone. And so the carbon dioxide came out of its oceans, completely disrupted its ecological system, and now its surface temperature is around 900 degrees Fahrenheit, and there are lakes of molten lead. Now, when I started teaching, they said if the Earth's average temperature rises beyond 2.5 degrees centigrade, we will produce the same kind of effect that Venus had, and the carbon dioxide will come out of solution in our oceans, and we will begin a runaway greenhouse effect. Well, friends, we are now at this moment in the crucible, and we are approaching the tipping point. In the years between 2050 and 2060, if we do not continue doing what we are here doing today, we will begin to approach what's called an ELE, an extinction level event. And the only hope for the human race will either be to leave the Earth or go underground. Now, you can check this out, you can Google it, whatever it is, but we are saving the Earth today by saving this piece of land that deserves to be served.
Thank you for that statement. Yes, it's true. This is bigger than Bernheim. This is about the future. And, you know, if we can't control the local activities, how do we expect to control global activities? And so, yes, this is about the future of the planet.
We have one question from the Zoom folks, and that is, how long does do you expect the condemnation case to last?
The question was, how long do we expect the condemnation case to last? Anywhere between 1 and 4 days is what we expect. You know, hopefully in that time we can make some really good points about the alternative opportunities that LG&E has, the fact that this didn't start with a transparent nature, the fact that they're still not transparent, and the fact that you know, there are good choices moving forward to meet those energy needs, including conservation activities in the meantime. So we will see. Yes, Paul, you want to go ahead?
So Mark's right, the condemnation case could be very quick. And again, it's stacked against us. But with your all support, and everybody supporting Bernheim and our Land Protection Defense Fund, we could probably appeal this. And so it won't be over. This is not going to be the end of it. This is just be the beginning of that condemnation phase. And we could see that case drag on for years if we act properly. Oh yeah, and also to mention that the Army Corps still hasn't decided on the water issue. The Center for Biological Diversity Challenge is still going on. All the permits are on hold. So yeah, there's a lot of ball left to be played. Yeah.
What's the Attorney General doing to help?
The Attorney General, are we talking about Daniel Cameron?
Well, he's the Attorney General, yes.
I'm sure he's paying attention to it. I don't know. You all should ask him. That would be a question for Daniel Cameron. I really can't answer that. Ask him and every other. No, we have not spoken with him about it. Henry, you might not want to jump around.
Maybe one more? Yeah, one more. Oh.
Go ahead. Oh, me? Thank you all. Very quickly, who are the decision makers that have the ability to turn the key off?
Well, I would assume the decision makers on this pipeline are within the power structure of LG&E and PPL.
And the governor?
I don't know what the governor's role can be on this. I don't know that.
I used to do environmental enforcement for a living, and I was the prosecuting witness for 50 some odd cases in court. And I guarantee you that when I filled all the seats with the neighbors, the judges got very attentive. The juries recognized that there was something going down. Everybody slowed down, took their time, and thought about what they were doing. So I do think it's important that however many days you're in court, there's no empty seats. There should be people like us just to observe what goes on.
I want to take a moment and just thank you all for your time and attention to this issue and to all issues related to the climate. We are in a crucial moment of time, and I agree. I worry about my kids and their kids, and we are the ones that will be held responsible for the future. So let's do it, gang. Let's do it. Thank you again.
We want to close today with Reverend Bruce Beisner. Bruce is our minister here at All Peoples. He joined us at our Unitarian Universalist congregation fall last.
Thank you, Russ. I just want to start by thanking Deborah for all of the work that she has been doing over the last several weeks. I will tell you, she's not been doing this by herself, but she is a one-woman force to be reckoned with, and so we are so blessed that she has taken this on. And is very committed to it on a very personal level. I also want to thank all of you all for being here today. I have been asked to tell you a whole bunch of stuff to remind you. First of all, we have a website. It is savebernheimnow.org, savebernheimnow.org, and you can go there anytime, 24 hours a day, and you can get the latest information on what's going on with this campaign. There's an online petition that's there now. The latest information, ideas, and ways that you can take action. So if you're with us online today, you can go there right now. If you're with us here in person, you can do that when you get home or tomorrow morning, and share that website with your friends and family and neighbors as well. Following our gathering here, right out there in our welcoming space, our good friends from the Kentucky Student Environmental Coalition have a whiteboard activity for you. They have a photo booth. They want to take pictures. They want to get our stories and our faces out there on social media because it makes a big difference. So please stop by and talk with them. We have a table where we have postcards that you can add your name to or add a personal message to. These are pre-addressed to all kinds of important folks for you. There they are right there. And we will mail them for you. So you can just add your signature to them or add your own personal message. We have Save Bernheim Now yard signs that you can take with you. These were very kindly donated and purchased by the Sierra Club, and we need your support to help pay for them, of course. We have t-shirts that are on the way that our wonderful, wonderful folks are modeling here. We don't have the t-shirts today, but you can place an order for them. Yes, show up in court and wear the shirt to Kroger's and to church or to temple or to wherever you're going in the next couple of weeks as well. I also want to remind you that a good group of us are committed to showing up every Friday afternoon at noon throughout the month of December out in front of LG&E. That's down located across the street from the Yum Center right downtown. I've seen some wonderful photos of folks. They look a little cold out there with their signs, but it's a great thing to do. And I'm going to be out there on a Friday afternoon, and I hope to see some of you all out there joining us, kind of raising a public stir. There's a good thing to do about that. I also want to mention to you that here at All Peoples Unitarian Universalist Congregation, a little over a year ago, we passed a resolution as a congregation, committing ourselves to doing what we can to combat the climate crisis. And part of that work is part of our Justice Center's work. Russ Funk is our Justice Center director. He's right back there, and he would be happy to talk with you about all the work that our Justice Center is doing, not only about the climate crisis, but about a lot of other things. We have a big Human Rights Day event that's going to be taking place here in our congregation next Saturday night. We have some amazing speakers. It's a great celebration of Human Rights Day. Tickets are available online, and it's a fundraiser to support the work that we're doing. Thank you all for being here. In closing, I just want to say that, I think what we have been talking about here today is more than just another good cause. It is more than just about doing the right thing. It is an expression of our deepest held values. It is about understanding our true relationship to one another and to our planet, and the responsibilities that come out of that relationship. Central to my faith as a Unitarian Universalist is knowing that I am part of something that is so much bigger than just me, just my family, my comfort, my home. Something larger than myself which creates and sustains and brings meaning to life. Some of us here today call that something God. Some of us know it by other names, Goddess or Spirit or Mother Earth, or perhaps no name at all. In this congregation, we often speak of this source as the interdependent web of all existence. This means that me and you and all of us are, of course, connected, linked together with everything else. This is not just a theological or a theoretical idea. It's the fact of living, right? And my own life, your life, our well-being can never be separated from the well-being of that tree that I can see right out there on the patio, that squirrel that makes a home in that tree, the birds that flock to its limbs. Because of biology, or maybe fate, or maybe design, we human beings have been given the ability to dramatically impact all of the other living things on our planet. Along with this power comes the ability to make choices. Choices which prioritize profits and short-term convenience, or choices which respect the sacred relationships that we all share. Being here today, being part of this effort that we are engaged in, is about making a choice. So as you go out into this wonderful city, into this wonderful place that we call home, as you go out and use your voice and your presence and your time and your energy to speak out about this pipeline project, I encourage you to focus your heart and your mind and your spirit. Don't focus on the evil of LG&E or the greed or the short-sightedness of it all. I encourage you to instead focus and be guided by your sense of reverence for this beautiful land that we are blessed to call our home. Let that beauty be part of what motivates you. This effort that we are doing here is an act of love, of respect, and of care for the reality of our connections. It is about doing what we must, being our best selves, caring for this incredible planet. And, and it's about being able to know that the future will be better. There is a better way, and we can all be a part of it. Thank you all so much for being here today. Get out there with your signs and your t-shirts and your petitions, and let's do this. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Please do stop by the KSEC whiteboard, check out the petitions and the postcards and the t-shirts. And as Bruce said, let's do this thing. Thank you so much.